Welcome to the Imperfect Dads Podcast. This is your host, Devin. We believe dads care deeply about their family and kids, but they don't always have a space to discuss what their life looks like. Our podcast is a space for dads to discuss the ups and downs of fatherhood and how they feel like they're holding it together or how they're not. Thank you for joining us for this episode. This podcast is part of the Never a Face Network. Make sure to follow them on Instagram or go to the website neverafacenetwork.com. On this episode, we have on Jesse Norell, better known as the kids musician Riffin Griffin. We talked about Jesse's daughter having Down syndrome, his daughter having heart surgeries early in life, writing an album about that experience, how his son helps him make and perform music, learning to constantly adjust your expectations, support systems, being primary parent, and figuring out how you can best support your family. Just like one more thing.
Dad, just start the episode.
Oh, my bad. I'm a big fan of the Decemberist, and they have an album called Hazards of Love, which is a huge rock opera. And it literally starts with like a D chord or a D note because they set the musical theme for the entire album.
Nice.
And they have a story in which they're playing like Lollapalooza and the keyboard didn't work. Like they'd sound checked it. They've done everything. And they go on stage and Jenny Conley, whatever her name is, walks on stage and holds down the note and nothing comes out. And there's like, this literally builds the next hour of our music. Like we can't, I forget what they said they did to like problem solve it and figure it out. But there's like, no, literally like this is setting the musical theme for the next hour of our performance.
In the kids band that I play in, Riffin Griffin, we're usually our own sound techs. We bring our own sound system, and It's terrifying because it's like, if this doesn't work, it's like, well, everybody get really close to me and we're going to like, Going
to play an acoustic set, right? That's what you wanted to do.
But we usually don't bring acoustic guitars or amplifiers, so that probably wouldn't save it either. So we just be like, hey, we're going to come back in 2 months, I guess.
Do you do, I know you do Riffin Griffin. Is that your full-time job?
No, my full-time job is being a dad, and I teach guitar and some bass and some songwriting, both here in this room in my home and at this little like homeschool co-op. I taught for this place called Minnesota School of Music for 7 years. And then Riffin Griffin is like summer money because we haven't figured out how to play shows when it's 0 degrees outside.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Because a lot of the places we get invited are like summer library programs and children's festivals and, all that sort of stuff. And so next step might be figuring out how we can be a little bit more educational and do school stuff because that's where kids are in the winter.
Yes. And it's where like opportunities come where you go to a school and play, and then like people find out about your music, gets you more interaction with kids. And like, I would imagine like writing kids music is like, you're trying to put your own experience as a parent into there, but also like you got to go see what kids are into so you can then write songs based on what they care about.
It's true. And also I try to be a tastemaker and be like, this is what you're going to be into.
Good luck with that.
I mean, it works with my kids, but I'm around them a lot more.
Oh yeah. And they don't have a choice. There's like, oh my, if we don't say we like this, he's just going to keep on playing it. So we got to.
Maybe, but I'll talk about this a lot, but my daughter has Down syndrome, so she's going to give it to me straight. So I remember one of the first things, we've got this cover of Bingo, the streaming services, and I was recording it, and at the end, I'm just screaming my face off in a way that I've never have into a microphone before. And I showed it to you, and I showed it to my daughter, Alyssa. I was like, is daddy terrifying? And she's like, yay, I love it. Like, okay, this is going to work.
Isn't it like, I find that fascinating because like as an adult, really raw expressions of emotions, I'm like, are you okay? But as like a kid, as a teenager, I was like, this feels real. And I feel like somewhere along the way, I'm just like, oh man, that's a really fascinating performance. Are you okay? It's more like my thought, whereas like as a kid, I was like, how do I channel that? How do I be that raw? And I'm just like, I'm not really looking to be that raw. I'm sorry anymore, guys.
Well, it's true. The hilarious paradox of this band is how we'll sing about mundane things with like Rage Against the Machine intensity.
Yeah.
That's
awesome.
So I think she got the joke and she was like, Daddy's being silly. I love this.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I think you're actually the first dad I've had on who has a child who has Down syndrome.
Really?
Yes.
Well, it's great. I recommended.
Well, more just like it's so fascinating because like I growing up, I had friends who like they had members of their family Down syndrome and everything. But like as an adult, like I don't think I know kids who have or families who much like autism. All that is part of it. But like as far as Down syndrome goes, like, yeah, no. So yeah, I'm very fascinated to know what your experience has been like for that being your parenting journey.
It's been lovely.
Hmm.
So my journey, like the main takeaway, if you were to just fast forward, it's
Yeah.
just that everybody's journey is different
Hmm.
and nobody is normal or typical. Like everybody is doing their own thing on their own journey and
Hmm.
just unique. So I'm happy to talk about my experience, but everybody else's experience is going to be
Yeah.
different, even if you
Totally.
do a kid with Down syndrome. So a big part of my journey, and I wrote an entire album about this, was that Alyssa needed heart surgery when she was born. And that
Dude.
was a huge deal. So she had her first heart surgery when she was like just under 6 months old. And then before she turned 3, she had to have another one.
Dude.
And it was just heartbreaking. It was so hard. And
Yeah.
just to give you one of the examples of the thing, when a kid is recovering from heart surgery, you can't lift them up under their arms. And that's just like a
Yeah.
go-to move for a parent,
Yeah.
right? But you can't because that's gonna pull on some stuff that
Hmm.
needs to not be pulled on for, like, 6 months. And, like, as I said, she was under 6 months when surgery number 1 happened, so that's, like, half of her life that you are treating her
Hmm.
in this weird way, and I think that was a bigger problem for heart surgery number 2 because it's easier to, like, scoop a kid that's really little. But, yeah, at one point, like, she stopped eating right when my wife went to work, and that was just, like, an impossible task for me to figure out how to manage that. You're just trying to get her to sleep as long as she can until mom gets
Yeah.
home 'cause she would eat when mom's around. We had just moved back from Singapore. We lived there
Hmm.
for 3 years. And so my wife did not have the stability with her job to be able to take like extra time off because she had
Yeah.
just gotten it. And that was our health insurance. And we couldn't let
Yeah.
go of the health insurance. So we've
Nope.
got just a amount of
Dude.
tricky things to deal with. So
Yeah.
my journey is like that. When before Alyssa was like 3.5 and we were clear of a lot of this stuff, that was the thing. Like, the fact that
Hmm.
she had Down syndrome, like, wasn't part of the equation. Like, it was like, how do we keep this person alive long enough to figure out, like, what it's like to have a kid with Down syndrome? Because
Mm.
everything was just so dominated by how do we keep her alive?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, once we just had this healthy kid with Down syndrome, it was like, "Oh, this is great. This is
Cool.
just
Yeah.
a blessing.
Yeah.
I love
Yeah.
this. This is so much fun."
Yes.
I was worried about I don't know. I didn't know if she'd be, like, as cute as a typical kid, and I'm gonna use that phrase,
Hmm.
stereotypical or typical, even though I just said a minute ago, I actually kind of don't believe in that, but it's the words that
It's
I'll
a framework. Yeah. It's a framework.
exactly, it's the
Yep.
best I can do for now.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure she's the cutest kid in existence. It's
Yeah.
fantastic. I remember not knowing that much about Down syndrome and being like, "Do all kids with Down syndrome have like speech issues and that sort of thing?" I love the way my daughter talks and I love how much she talks. And it's just, it brings me joy every time she opens her mouth.
Yeah.
And so, like, you just don't know what you're going to get. Some kids with Down syndrome, don't talk very much at all.
Hmm.
And that's not our situation. And so she can communicate a lot. Every 10-year-old is not necessarily going to be able to communicate all their feelings. So that's true of Alyssa as
Yeah.
well.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean that's a little bit. I could talk about this for the
Yeah.
next 3 hours, and if you have any questions, let me know. But it's
Cool. I think kind of what I heard in there was like, I think whenever you become a parent, you find joy in ways you didn't expect to find joy. And I'm assuming that whenever, if that's how your journey started and everything, you're probably like, I know I'm going to find happiness in here. I'm going to find joy in this, but like, what's my path? How do I find the joy that I know children naturally bring to life whenever you started off with a rough hand, man? That's heart surgeries is like freaking, that just, I just want to give you a hug. That's basically all I think.
thank you. I needed one for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's interesting your description that you just gave about like finding. What did you say? Finding joy
The
in
joy, like, because there's joy in parenting, but like, I think if you're, a lot of life is here's what I expected, here's what reality is. how do I manage this? How do I deal with this? And like, I think finding joy in parenting, finding the happy moments in it is the only way to survive it.
Yeah. So that's so interesting because when I talk about kids and I think people in general with Down syndrome, I feel like that's a big part of it is that they are really good at finding joy in the
They
places where
are.
people sort of are are over it, I guess. To,
Hmm.
you sort of go like, okay, that brought me joy once, and now I'm kind of done with that. They
Yeah.
can continue to find this joy, and I think that's the a really good description because a lot of people think kids with Down syndrome are happy all of the time, and that's a misnomer.
Yeah.
Just that they will find pockets of joy that you won't expect.
Cool.
And that's really neat. So that sort of keeps that parenting joy kind of alive because you get to see them go like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I think that's hilarious," or "Oh, I think this is really fun," doing whatever. And, when kids are young, like spinning around in a circle or, singing some random song or something. And we all see that in our kids when they're little, but I feel like in my experience, kids with Down syndrome can hold on to that a little bit longer.
Hmm.
Wish we all could,
Yeah.
right? It wouldn't like dull the joy after a while.
Yeah. And I think that's like what most parents would say whenever they have a kid is like they have to it's just new eyes on everything. Cause like, yeah, like watching a 4-year old play with bubbles and like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. And like,
Yeah.
I'm over there frustrated that I can't get better bubble. I'm over there like, oh, I've broken the wand again. And they're just like, look at this. And I'm just like, no, it could be better. And it's like, this is good. Stop
Yeah,
it.
totally. And the other thing that you said was about expectations, and I love that. That's such a huge thing. It's such a theme on this record that I wrote because when you have a, kid with a disability or is neurodivergent in some way, you start thinking about, well, are they well, this is too bad. They can't be in the Olympics anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, are they gonna go to college? Like, you don't think about that. Like, you're not thinking 20 years plus ahead most of
Yeah.
the time. Like, that's a weird thing. So you kind of have to check your expectations at the door
Yeah.
and just be like, if my kid doesn't learn to swim when they're 7, but when they're 15 instead, like, that's
That's
probably
fine.
okay. That'll
Yeah.
probably work out fine.
Yep.
And yeah, so just if you just have to analyze whether what you're upset or sad or disappointed about just is a reflection of your expectations.
Hmm.
If so, can you just change them? Is it
Pretty
that easy?
much. Yeah, just go to not like in a mean tone, but like therapy would help. Like it's like, hey, you had an expectation and it's not going to be met. So, and if changing your expectation is difficult for you, you just need help. And like, cause it's going to be better if you can figure this out. Cause life is going to be filled with moments of this isn't what I expected. And if that makes you a monster every time you experience that, you just ask for help. You'll be okay.
Whatever journey you're on is fine. Whatever path it takes to get there, however long it takes to get there,
Yep.
it's all fine.
Yeah. I talked to the bass player for the Avett Brothers, Bob Crawford. His daughter had brain cancer and has had it like 3 times, but she had it whenever she was 22 months.
Oh wow.
And I just asked him like, "Oh, your daughter's like 16. Like, how's it feel about like I'm assuming you won't teach her how to drive or anything." And he's like, for the longest time, I didn't know if I'd ever even have the chance to have a 16-year-old. So like that's pretty low on my list of like, don't get to teach her to drive. He's like, it's been a journey, and I'm sure like yeah, whenever your kid has open heart surgery as young as your child was, it's like, oh, what about they turn 10, and you're like, hopefully.
Yep.
I'm looking at some darkness here, guys. Like I'm
Right.
not really like here we go.
Yeah. Just adjusting those expectations is
Mhm.
huge for
Yeah.
sure.
That's man, the open heart surgery is just like my dad's had open heart surgery and like he did that in his 60s though. So like it's like so I can't like it's such a little body and it's such a miracle that surgeons are so gifted and that they can do surgery like that that's needed. But like, oh, man, that's so much.
I like how you framed that because you said in like without taking a breath in like the same sentence, it's so amazing that surgeons can do this and you use the word miracle in the same sentence. For
Yeah.
some people, that's an either or situation. And I like your
Okay.
both and approach to like, this is like the fact that they can do all of this is miraculous. Like, I'll take that. That sounds good.
Because it is. It's like oh man, we're talking like millimeters, man. We're talking like the smallest increments and the steadiest of hands, and like it doesn't. I think The human body is a heck of a lot more fragile than we'd like to realize, and it doesn't take much.
Yeah, and people may know that or may have noticed that folks with Down syndrome live a lot longer than they used to,
Hmm.
and I think the how common heart defects are with kids with Down syndrome, definitely, their lifespan has definitely been improved by all the modern technology and modern medicine.
Yeah,
So that's a big part of it. So it doesn't need to be a short-lived experience anymore,
yeah,
which is great.
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Do you have one kid or do you have more than one kid?
I have 2 kids, so I already talked about Alyssa, who is 10, and then
Hmm.
my son Tyler is 12.
Nice. How did you process that? I would be it'd be fascinating to me to have like a kid without Down syndrome and then have one with Down syndrome. Like, oh, this is once again just managing your own personal expectations.
We've already talked about a lot of it, like,
Yeah.
comparing the 2 of them isn't even helpful, let alone comparing them to their classmates. It's
Yeah.
just like, this is our family dynamic. We're gonna
Hmm.
figure it out. We're gonna find joy in places that maybe we didn't before, and we might find some frustration in places we
Hmm.
did before. Having us all find a board game that we can play together is a little tricky.
Yeah.
So, stuff like that, and the way they interact might not be the same as a typical 10 and 12-year-old would, but also, like, I think they're learning so much from each other and they're going to have so much empathy for
Hmm.
others. And I love the way that they're both turning out. And my son is, you know, he's his own person too.
Hmm.
He's got his own stuff. And so it just, again, it just feels like everybody's on their own path
Yeah.
and you just take it as it comes. I don't know if that's the answer you were looking for.
No, no, no. It's. I think, regardless of what family dynamics are, every single person brings something different to the table, and you're trying to figure out how to make a family unit, basically. And yeah, more just intrigue of like a kid with Down syndrome. You have to account for. I feel like the intentionality for a kid who has Down syndrome is drastically different than just like a 12-year-old boy. I don't want to use the words normal because it's not and but like to be like a
Mhm.
normal kid versus a Down syndrome kid's like, oh, that's a value system. I don't want to communicate. Like they both are beautiful kids and loving. So I I think I would assume a lot of this is fascinating for you to learn how to talk about and what like vocabulary to learn because like you don't want to say your son is normal, your daughter
Right.
is not, because they both have their own life, their own journey. And like that's reality. Normal versus normal is not reality.
Right. Yeah. And typical tends to be the go-to word. I mean, it's
Hmm.
similar, but it seems to be a little bit more acceptable. But I know what you're saying, and it's really hard to get the language right.
Yeah.
And on a side note, what I've learned about the language is, just put the person first whenever you can. So Alyssa is a kid with Down syndrome. She's not a Down syndrome kid, right? So
Yeah, that
like,
matters.
yeah, it does. That is a thing that she has, that she experiences. That's not
Hmm.
who she is,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And I
Hmm.
I never, no shame for anybody that's learning like I learned. I had to learn a lot of this stuff, but it's like just with anything, what's the most caring way that we can
Yeah.
talk about this? What's the most caring way that we can approach this, with language or,
Yeah.
anything?
Yeah, and I don't know. I think words matter a lot. Words tell a lot more about how we view about a situation, and I think they set the ceiling and the floor a lot for a relationship. So I think that's phenomenal phrasing to be aware of. Is like that she is a kid who happens to have Down syndrome, as opposed to she's a Down syndrome kid. It's like, oh, that's if you lead with someone's name, their name is their definition. If you lead with their even a characteristic, like I remember with my oldest, like she was shy when she was a kid. If I walk up and go, oh, "This is Holly, she's shy," then everyone treats her like she's a shy kid, and it's like, well, now I've put her now like now all she believes she is a shy kid, and like that's today she might have been shy, tomorrow she'll be dead. So it's language matters.
It does, 100%. And those introductions matter, and yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What about for like support systems, like community for it? Like how do you find community?
Yeah. So last night I brought Alyssa to an adaptive dance program. So she does jazz dance and tap. And there is one other person in her class, a young girl, and they both have Down syndrome. And they've got 3 teachers for the 2 of them. And
Hmm.
so finding little programs like that, there's a bunch of them. And even if something is adaptive, that doesn't mean that they're gonna like it. Like, if there's adaptive soccer, that doesn't mean that your kid loves soccer,
Yeah, yeah.
right? Which we found out firsthand.
Yeah.
Might try that again eventually, but
Yeah.
yeah, so programs like that are great. We have the Down Syndrome Association of Minnesota, which is wonderful. So, and then there's this local organization that's actually become a national organization called Jack's Basket. And so when Alyssa was born, Carissa, who is the owner, drove to our house and handed us this basket of resources. Here are some things that you might need or you might be curious
Yeah.
about, you might want to learn about. And she just sat with us and talked with us for a while, and they mail out these baskets like all over, I think, the world at this point, definitely the United States.
Yeah.
So Minnesota is particularly great that way, but there
Mhm.
are resources everywhere. But mostly, like, tapping into the typical kid resources is like just as useful,
Yeah.
because for the most part, you want to see what your kid needs that's different from
Mhm.
usual, and then see what you can do about that. And if not, like, go the normal path and see how that works out. Like,
Yeah.
follow the path that typical kids would follow and see how that goes, and then
Yeah.
adapt from there.
Yeah, I think adaptability and flexibility is something like besides like, hey, parenting takes a lot of intentionality. But like I feel like no matter where your scenario is, like you have to be so adaptable as a parent because it's like, hey, how's the school year? And it's like, this year it's good. There's some like we have to navigate like how's your relationship with the teacher? How are they interacting with all their classmates and stuff? Like I don't understand ego in parenting because nothing is set in stone. Like I could get a phone call in the middle of this and be like, hey, you need to come pick up your kid for blah, blah, blah. So like I think that's the anxiety you live with as a parent is like I can't set anything in stone. I can't set and forget a single freaking thing in my life anymore. And I love that predictability and control that I assume comes with it.
Right. Yeah. And sort of back to your, I feel like this is related to, you asked sort of whether I'm full time doing the Riffin Griffin, my kids band. And
Yeah.
I saw Alyssa get heart scans over and over again, and I kind of became interested in it and was like, what if I went back to school to become an echo tech for kids?
Yeah.
And that sounded really exciting, and I thought about it seriously. And then it seemed like my value was more in being able to stay home and even just kind of be on call for all of the stuff that comes up for both of our kids.
Yep.
That was a high enough value to the rest of my family that it's like, I know you could be making more money. Like, you're a functional human being. Like, you can go get a full-time job. You've had them before. You can have them again. But it took me a while because I think was relatively ingrained in me that, capitalism and finances provide
Mm-hmm.
stuff. Like,
Yep.
that's what it's what's kind of drilled into you, is that that's what you're supposed to do. And it took me a while, and then eventually it was like, no, you're doing a good job.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yep.
being available in this way, and then just fill in the gaps where you can. And it still feels really busy, even though I only kind of work part time. It feels, especially like, Riffin Griffin is kind of a business. My teaching job is running a small business, and it's just a lot of hours that go into that are not paid hours,
Yeah. Yep.
But that was an important thing for me to learn. I am available. I'm on call and very involved in ways that maybe some dads aren't typically.
Mm-hmm.
I went to this what I called mom's group because when I first started bringing my kids to school, like preschool and stuff, it was the parents group. So you kind of wean your kids off of you and have them, okay, now today they're going to go to class for 10 minutes and tomorrow they're
Mm-hmm.
going to go to class for 20
Okay.
minutes.
Yeah.
And, and then the parents would meet and talk about parenting stuff during that time. But it wasn't parents group. It was mom's group plus me. And I
Yep.
was surprised at this because we had just moved from Singapore, and I'm like, surely things have shifted more in the US. And I was surprised that they hadn't more than
Yeah.
that.
Yep.
And just fully accepted by that group, which was great. So they would talk about all the bottling and breastfeeding and all of the things in front of me. And
Mm-hmm.
that was, um, really interesting and cool. And I was going somewhere else with that, but now I lost my train of thought. I'm sorry.
Well, hey, I'll relate to you. I'm also a stay-at-home parent, and that entire journey is one I've also been on. Whenever we had our second kid, is whenever I quit working
Okay.
because we were paying for 2 daycares, which was basically the cost of our mortgage, and my wife was making more money than me, and so it was like, okay, basically my paycheck pays for daycare. So why am I working basically? And I was working like at a dentist's office doing admin. It wasn't a bad job. I totally relate to the whole like, hey, are you a failure because you can't make more money than your wife? And it's like, no, it's just the situation. It's just reality is that my wife is someone who is very good at when you hand her something, she makes it better and elevates it. And I'm not saying I don't, but she does it in a way in which people are like, hey, we're going to give you more responsibilities and more money. And I freaking tried to make more money than her. I tried to be good at career and stuff. It's not how it worked out.
Right.
But that I think I had to change my definition of masculinity to, am I doing what helps my family the best? Am I doing, like, my role here is to love my family. There's so many different ways to love your family and to show up for your family. And if I limit it to finances, then I'm actually limiting myself and my ability to love. And I need to figure that out.
Yeah. Yeah. And wouldn't it be nice if that equation could be a little bit different in terms of how much childcare costs in
Hmm.
America? So that, I mean, and if someday us or the next generation has a different set of calculations to make about how that's
Hmm.
going to work, great, more options for you. But
Yeah.
for people like us, it's like, oh, yeah, let's look at how expensive that is and how
Hmm.
many hours I would have to work to cover
Yep.
that. And then you treat that like a job. You're like, "Hey, look at all the budget says 0,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know, like, the value of being that caregiver." And especially in my situation, right? Like, not everybody can care for a kid like Alyssa.
Yeah.
And just I think kids in general are better off with their parents than with anybody else. I think most
Correct.
people would agree with that.
Yeah.
So there's
Even
actually
like,
that too.
yeah. And like whenever, I remember our kids going to daycare and stuff whenever they were little and like like reconnection time as if like, and it still happens a little bit with your kids coming home from school where they just are like mad at everything. And I think the anger is just like they've been out in the world and stuff. And like, you should put your kids out in the world. But like, I distinctly remember like 1 year olds who would just like scream and cry for like 20 minutes, like just because they missed you, just because they met like you're their normal and they didn't experience that for most of the day.
100%. Yeah.
Yep. But yeah, no, there's like, I've also had the thought of like, hey, should I go back to school? Should I do stuff? Should I do that? And then I'm like, but if I do, what's the opportunity cost? If I do that, then what does that then put on my wife? Because I'm not available like I am right now. And like at the moment, it's not worth it to change up that structure of I'm going to go do something else. I'm going to go back to 9 to 5. I'm going to do this because then like, well, who takes lead on whenever a kid is sick? Who takes lead on this? And it's like, well, right now I'm the answer.
Mhm.
Avoiding that conversation and that stress, it's good. It's
Yeah.
really good.
So you've lived in a bunch of different places. You were in Nashville and now you're in
Mhm.
Denver.
Yes.
This is a huge part of that. People don't talk about how huge grandparents can be, right? Like, do
Yeah.
you automatically have built-in free childcare that it's like family members? If
So,
if you
yeah,
do, it's like it's a total
oh, it's
game
massively
changer.
different.
Yeah.
So, no, I'm from Southern Indiana originally, and Nashville was like 2.5 hours away. So my parents would drive down from time to time, like if to help out with stuff. My in-laws lived in town for a little bit whenever we were in Nashville, and then they moved away. And now that we live out in Denver, I have 3 aunts that live out here. And like, I feel like once a month, one of my aunts will come over and like put the kids to bed while we go out to dinner and stuff. But like, no, I think in relation to that, I think it's fascinating because, like, if we move back to my hometown in Indiana, my parents would be like the most helpful. They'd probably take the kids. Like, I feel like we'd have to beg them to like give our kids back. Like it'd be that
Yeah.
energy.
In the situations where it's, grandparent comes over Monday through Friday, 8 to 5,
Hmm.
like, holy cow, is that a game changer, right? And people don't really recognize, like, the huge gap in between the haves and have-nots with the
Hmm.
childcare stuff.
Yep.
And I just hope that eventually there'll be a little bit more understanding and a change in the game that way, especially from a government financial assistance perspective.
Yeah. Yeah. Perfect. Hey, you do kids music. Tell me about like what kids music process, all this stuff. What made you want to start Riffin Griffin?
Great question. And I've already given you some of the backstory. I'll quickly go back a little bit further, which is that out of college was in two bands and played as soon as I was old enough to get into the bars, was playing all of them around the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And then it was like, I need to be a responsible adult and make money, and this isn't doing it.
Hmm.
And this is just a really hard thing to feel successful at.
Yes.
And when it got hard, I was like, all right, well, I'm going to stop doing that for a while. And a little while became 15 years. We moved to Singapore, as I mentioned, had my son in Singapore, my daughter just after we moved back from Singapore. And it's just all this stuff. I was like, I'm going to get back to this next year.
Hmm.
Next year. And I did
Yeah.
that for 15 years. And then when Alyssa was cleared of all the really big medical concerns, and they were like, I don't think she's going to need another heart surgery, like, ever.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
feeding tube is out, and all these things that, and by the way, I was the only one that knew how to use the feeding tube, so that was a lot on the hook for me.
That's fun.
It was a lot. Once that all cleared, it was like I had always wanted to write this sort of orchestral pop rock record, and I was like, it sort of formed in my head the way I could tell Alyssa's story, or maybe more accurately, me as her dad watching her story is really more what it is. And, maybe at the end, talk about what I've learned, encourage other parents who are on the same journey. And I wrote this 12-song album called Aorta Borealis. If I could retitle it, it would be less of a mouthful than that,
Right.
because I got on like local news a couple of times and watched the anchors struggle to say it. And I'm like, yeah, I could maybe,
Okay. I
meh.
see. I see the problem here. Okay. Yeah. I see it. Yeah.
I see it. I'll go back. So released that, and at the beginning of the album just feels really heavy and dark, and like
Hmm.
it starts at this, you're supposed to have this joyous feeling of your kid being born, and instead you're just met with all these concerns that you don't know what to do with, and then
Yeah.
it just goes through the chapters of battling through all this stuff. And then by the end it's just like joy. And
Hmm.
it's lovely, and celebrates the different members of my family and how we all came back together. And by the end of it, and had felt like maybe that was going somewhere, got on Good Morning America and stuff, and was
Yeah.
like, hey, is this gonna like take off? And then it just kind of didn't. And I
Yeah.
was like, oh well, that was fun, so what do I do next?
Hmm.
And when some of the people that I was talking to, that I, got on TV a couple of times, as I mentioned, they were trying to understand it, and they were saying, so does Alyssa sing on the album? Did she? It's like, no, no, no. Well, it's about her, but she's not
Yeah.
on there. And then
Yeah.
I thought, but I could do that. Like,
Hmm.
we could do that. I had a bunch of songs I would sing incessantly to my kids, just make up garbage to get them to go
Yeah.
to sleep. And eventually I was like, I have so many little songs. What if they sounded like Green Day and Rage Against the Machine? That would be
Yeah. Yeah.
hilarious.
Yeah.
Because on the album, like, I'm holding back a little bit. I made this little rule for myself, like, don't strum the guitar. That's what you always do. People don't do that anymore. Like, be more nuanced than that. And then I was like,
Yeah.
I just want to kick ass now for the
Yeah.
children. Started doing that, and I thought it was going to be kind of a divergence. And by the way, the other question I was asking myself was, is the end of Aorta Borealis already children's music? Like,
Yeah.
it just felt like, or if it was another 12 songs long, would it eventually just be that?
Yeah. It was just
Like the
naturally.
arc of the thing, right?
Because I do believe in like music and creativity is a way to process your life. So like I've listened to tons of divorce albums where you hear the musician, they're like, "Why'd you write a divorce album?" It's like, because I couldn't write anything else until I got through this. So like you
Yes.
probably couldn't write the fun, happy kid songs until you dealt with the fact of like, oh, this was a lot to handle and process, and I need to process it.
Right. And let me make a small divergence. We are
Yeah.
recording this on February 20th,
Hmm.
2026. I live in Minneapolis. And the backdrop of all of that is that I haven't been able to write children's music for a minute because of
Yeah.
everything that's been going on in my
Yep.
city. It's like,
Yep.
I mean, the only thing that I could think of doing is starting a really angry, like, political punk rock band, and it's like,
Yep.
well,
That's a
I
different energy. Yeah.
that's a different energy, and it's like, I don't know if that fits with all the wholesome stuff that I've put out. Does it?
Of course. Yeah.
So it's like, and besides, I'm just like, it has been very tiring, right?
Hmm.
And like,
Yeah.
do you have the energy for all of that? Or are you just, so tired and sad and, and angry inside? You just need to figure out how to process it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, so Aorta Borealis, that was under Jesse Norell. That was my first solo record. And Ike was kind of asking what's next. And I had these songs. I was like, well, I'm going to record those next while I figure out what the next thing is, what
Yeah.
the next Jesse Norell record is, or whatever. Or am I going to try to get into like the sync thing or the jingle writing thing? And it was supposed to be this gap because I knew that if I stopped, I was scared that I was going to disappear into a cave for another 15 years. So instead I was like, okay, I think I've got 12 to 15 of these. Let's just do it. They can be real short, doesn't matter. It's going to be hilarious. And then I did it and you start getting some like this sort of positive feedback loop, especially from kids and from my own kids. And then after I recorded those that sort of were these little ditties that are already existed, was like, well, what if I tried writing something from scratch? What would that
Yeah.
sound like? And then it was just like, I just want to keep doing this, especially after I formed a live band and was able to do it in front of kids and to watch
Yeah.
their reaction.
Uh-huh.
It's all been great. I've heard a couple of your guests talk about like I started doing this thing, Justin Roberts, Mega Ran, they started making children's music and it sort of took off on its own. I have not had that experience, but I have started to feel the positive feedback loop, which is something that's harder to get in adult music because it's crowded and adults suck sometimes, but
Hmm.
kids are awesome.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I think musically I'm getting everything that I want out of this because I do treat it like I want to make the best possible thing that I can for kids,
Hmm.
like Mr. Rogers did, like, Disney movies do,
Yeah.
you know, like Super Mario did for me when I was a kid. I was like, this
Yeah.
is a kid's toy? Are you
Uh-huh.
kidding? This is amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the kind of energy that I put into it. It's a ton of work and I love it. And it feels like it's doing, except for the like political, I want to just have every word be a curse word.
Hmm.
It's filling most of the void for me, which is great.
That is good. And it's nice whenever, like, I don't know, man, even like you're talking about like positive stuff. I think when you do creative things, I think I'd said to you whenever you were like, oh, hey, I listened to some episodes, like my genuine thought is like, thank you. Like,
Mm,
it's just cause like it's so like, it's not even like getting positive response. Sometimes like, am I getting any response? Cause it's so easy to like put stuff out in the world and be like, someone saw this, right? Like, I'm
yeah,
not just screaming into the void. So getting positive reinforcement from kids and being like, "Hey, I wrote this silly song," and kids are like, "I love this." It's like that's intoxicating. Like
it
honestly,
is. Yeah. And it's so weird doing, the podcast thing, the music thing, you put it out into the void. Spotify says that 2,000 people listened to that this month, and you're like,
yeah,
but none of them told me about it.
exactly. Yep, yep. Oh, this episode had 100 listens and not a single person. And my mom can't listen to it 100 times. I know it's more than just her.
Yeah, it's at least 98 other listeners than my family in there.
Exactly. But it
Yeah,
is like it's. I think it makes it more meaningful or like yeah it's definitely a different energy whenever someone does be like hey I really like this you're like that's so much more encouraging than you would realize so like I just try to make it a point if I meet like a chef or someone and they're doing something like hey I like what you're doing to like just say it because
yeah.
most people don't take the time to say it.
Yes, I was thinking for a long time about like, how your mom used to say, like, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. What if we
Yeah,
took that to the opposite extreme?
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
you think something nice, don't keep it to yourself.
yep, pretty much and because it's a heavy world. It's a heavy life to live in sometimes. And just people being like, "Hey, I thought that was good." I mean, how much time do you spend telling your kids like, "Hey, I liked when you did this." Like it's all you positive reinforce like freaking everything whenever you're a parent. And whenever you try to do and also like I'm not gonna act like I don't have my own walls up if someone's like, "Hey, you were good when you do this." And I'm not gonna immediately gonna be like, "Thank you. I appreciate that." I'm gonna be like, "What are you trying to get at? What's your agenda?"
Right. Yeah, I know. I used to have a really hard time when people would say, "Oh, you're so talented." I'd be like, "Oh, well, that means you just don't like it, but you're trying to be nice." Like, I have these weird things where people will give me a
Yeah.
compliment and I'll be like, "No, why are you being so mean?"
Yeah, right. I think if you're like, "You're so talented," I'd be like, "Yes, but have you heard this person? Yes, but have you seen this? Yes, but have," because like I'm trying to live up to my influences. So, like, if I tried to write a song and I played an A minor chord, I could tell you 5 songs I wish it was immediately just by strumming that one chord. And I'm
Mhm.
like, "You've just killed your ability to play the second chord, man.
Right.
Calm it down."
The self-editing and it the way songwriters in particular edit themselves as they go is so counterproductive. So it's
Yep.
like I heard the Chris Caraba Dashboard
Yeah, yeah,
Confession gets up in the middle of the night so that because he's find that his editing brain isn't on and he'll
yeah,
just do stuff and then I don't know if he goes back to sleep or whatever, but it's like, how are you possibly going to turn that thing off when you have just constant, nope, that sucks. Nope, that's
yep,
terrible. Like,
yep.
how are
You
you
can be
supposed to?
better.
Yeah, it's terrible.
I actually talked to he won like Australia American Idol 8 or 6 or something like that.
Wow.
Wesley Dean, Wesley Carr. And he has 2 kids and that's what he would do is he would wake up at 2 a.m. and just be like, honestly, if I try to do this in the morning, the day's gonna already be gone for me. And then I'm gonna be like, okay, it's the afternoon, let's get lunch, let's go write some songs. And then in the middle of a session, I'm gonna be like, well, now I gotta go pick up the kids. Like, and he's like, so 2 a.m. 2 a.m. until 5 a.m. is whenever I wake up in the morning and I make music. And
That's
I'm
awesome.
like, I get that. I respect that. I'm good. I'm not.
Yep. Yeah. And good for you. And also, I cannot.
I cannot. I'm glad someone's able to figure this out because I'm not doing.
Right. For me, it's like, if kids don't like it, well, kids are going to like what they like.
Hmm.
And if adults don't like it, well, it's not really for you.
Yeah.
Although I will say, caveat on that, I do write for adults.
Yeah.
When I write, I sit down and I think, okay, so what would I want to listen to if my kid wanted to listen to this over and over again?
Yeah.
What could I get down with?
Yeah.
And so there is like I write music for the adults and lyrics for the kids. A lot of times
Hmm.
that's part of it.
Yeah.
But if, like, neither of those hit, it's like, I get it. That's fine. It's sort of
Right.
like I do stuff that I would make me laugh, and
Hmm.
sometimes the target audience, like, I don't even know what it is. There's this song that we have on streaming called Tummy Time, and it's a super aggressive song about tummy time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, "Who is this for?" It's like the kids are too young to enjoy it, and I don't like, it's too intense for the thing that it is. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
it's
But you had to write it for some reason.
but yeah, it's because I found it hilarious, and maybe someone else will find it
Yeah.
hilarious.
I think that that's funny. Justin Roberts, I think he sounds like if the Mountain Goats made kids music. That's how I always feel like because he's got like the nasally voice, he's got like
Mhm.
the very acoustic but very talented full band around him and stuff.
Yeah,
So if my kids like want to listen to him, that's what's in my head. Is like I feel like if Mountain Goats had a really like in a multiverse, they're playing kids music. This is the vibe I would expect for it to sound like.
yeah, for sure. Now, I heard you talking to William Goldsmith from Sunny
Yes.
Day Real Estate, and
Yeah.
you 2 he was like, "Hey, you should listen to Assertion. Great
Yeah.
record, by the way."
Yeah. Yeah.
And he was like, "But don't tell me if you did. Like, you don't have to
Don't
give me
tell me.
feedback."
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
It was just sort of like, "I get it. Everybody's busy." Understanding that, and that being
Yeah.
said, I am curious to know if your kids would enjoy Riffin Griffin. So if you ever if
Okay.
they
Okay.
do
Yeah.
enjoy it and you feel like letting me know,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
please do because that ties back into our other part of the conversation that we're all
Yeah. Totally.
tempted to to hear some of the voices out there in the void that may
Yeah.
or may not be listening.
Yeah. This afternoon, I'll make sure to give it a solid spin with my son and see how he responds to it. And I'll let you know.
Okay, thank you.
Of course. And thank you for asking for that because that also takes courage to be like, hey, I made this thing. I'm proud of it. So if you could just tell me your thoughts on it, that'd be great. That takes courage to do and vulnerability just to acknowledge that.
Well, thank you. We just talked about we all need it. We're all human beings.
We do. I want to know I'm doing something right. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And I do feel like when I've listened to some of your podcasts, I've heard like I feel like you and many dads who may be listening to it are kind of my target audience, like the
Mhm.
people that I am thinking about when I'm writing this. Like people that when they hear Nirvana aren't like, oh, that is, they grew up on that stuff.
Yeah.
Not that we're that grunge or anything. We're more along the lines of, kind of a Blink 182 riff driven
Mhm.
sort of situation. But for a lot of people, like that's their oldies, right? Like
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
dad
Yep.
rock now. I've
Yep,
heard you
it
talk a
is.
little bit about dad rock too, and I always have a weird relationship with that
Yeah,
because
of course.
when you say that, people like dismiss you immediately. But like, no, we can redefine dad rock.
We
We
can,
can
and
make it
that's
new again.
that's what
We
we're doing,
can
and,
it.
like, dad rock isn't just Leonard Skinner and the Allman Brothers anymore, guys. I'm sorry, but Enema of the State's 30 years old now, guys. Like, I don't
Yep.
know, it's graduated college for a while. Like,
Yep.
it's about to have its midlife crisis. That's what those albums are.
Totally. So I think Riffin Griffin is great. Get your energy out, run around, just sort of music. Get yourself pumped up before school with your kids, kind of music. And different parents have different tolerance for adult content in songs
Mhm.
when their kids are different ages. And so I like to pose a different alternative, right? So like a lot of the music that I think really sounds like it's kids music in the terms of how big the riffs are and how exciting it sounds. You're like, "Oh, that song's about a heroin addiction. Cool." And when
Yeah,
Billy Corgan is talking about love is suicide,
yeah.
you were talking the other day on one of your podcasts how like your daughter was like, "Hey, what does this say on the bathroom stall wall? Let's see, SHI.
I
Let me try to
see.
sound that out." You probably said it's good for us to have this conversation
It
so
is,
we
yeah.
can know what that word is.
Yeah.
Also, I didn't need that today.
I didn't
I
expect
wasn't
that,
expecting that. Like, could I just deal with things when I want to rather than like being surprised all the time? And I
pretty
feel like
much.
having a safe place where like, hey, this is music that is suitable for kids that I can trust this
Yeah,
and
yeah.
we're not going to talk about. I mean, have you looked at AC/DC lyrics? Oh my gosh.
I
Like,
mean, Third Eye Blind's my favorite. Third Eye
okay.
Blind's my favorite for that. Crystal meth will lift you up until you break. Deep inside of you. 10 Days Late. I didn't know what 10 Days Late was. I didn't know that was about getting a girlfriend pregnant whenever I was a kid, you know?
I'm learning this now.
She's 10 days late. Yeah, it's just no,
It's
pop music in the 90s was like as mile high. What would you do if your son was at home crying all alone on the bedroom floor because he's hungry and the only way to feed him is to sleep with a man for a little bit of money and his daddy's gone? That was a pop song, you know?
wow. Yeah. And it's like at the very best, it's innuendo that you're crossing your fingers that they
Please
don't
don't
get.
pick up on that. Please don't pick
And
up
you're
on that.
like, why do I need to live there? Why isn't there music that solves this? Because there's a lot of music in the world.
Yes.
So for me, it was a little bit of like, is there a problem to be solved and can I solve it? At least for
Yeah.
my family,
Yeah.
and we kind of have.
Yeah. That's awesome. You've heard the 5 questions, so
Uh-huh.
you should. So don't be stumped by them. Okay, that's my
I will
request.
try. I've thought about them a little bit.
Okay, good. Okay. First question is backup names for your kids. Is there anything you almost named your kids?
So I remember with Tyler thinking I kind of liked Jeremy, but I didn't want to be like Jeremy every time I saw him.
Yeah, yeah,
So that was one that I avoided.
yeah,
But it was a lot of like what we did end up doing was we thought both of our kids' middle names were going to be their first names and then we flipped them.
yeah, yeah.
So Alyssa is Alyssa Sydney. Her first name was going to be Sydney. And then Tyler Zachary, he was going to be Zach. So we
Cool.
flip-flopped those and it's kind of or at least Alyssa was like we met our kid and went, you look like more like this,
Cool. Yeah,
which is a nice thing to be able to do.
that's awesome. And then next question: favorite TV or movie dad?
So when I actually think about that sort of father-son dynamic relationship, I actually think of like Gandalf and Dumbledore. And
Yeah,
that's not like a legit father-son situation,
yeah.
but it kind of a little bit surprised at how few examples I feel like there are to answer this question, at least
Hmm.
for a while. But those are two that I think of like, the you shall not pass minute. Like I feel like that as a dad a lot. Like
Sure. Yeah.
you've just got to protect your kids from all this darkness that's everywhere and be like,
Yep.
I am going to absorb this for you.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've got to go with an answer I'm sure you've gotten a lot, which is Bandit from Bluey.
Yeah. It's the best. Yep.
And the thing about it is I mean, for a cartoon dog, it's really real. You know what I mean? He's not
Yeah.
perfect. He does
No.
some stuff that I'm like, ooh, bro,
Yeah.
like, that's
Yeah.
not great. But he's always trying, and that's what I try to do. I always try to try.
Yep. And I think they make it very human, which is funny, but it is very much like Bandit trying, or I think the moments that like he has that I relate to the most is whenever he tries to do joke, like the yoga ball one where he's like bouncing bingo on the yoga ball and it hurts. And he's like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I thought this was fun and playful. I thought I think there's so many moments in life and not just parenting where like I thought we were connecting and apparently I was hurting you. And I didn't I'm sorry.
We were watching. I've seen all of them. I love that
Yeah.
show. And when there's one we were watching the other day where they were like, I think Bluey's asking, "What's it like to be a parent?" And they kind of walk through this, and at the end, the dad's getting pelted with like tennis balls, and they're like, "That's what it's like."
That's what it's like, yes.
And at one point, they're like, "Dad, can you play with us?" And he was like, I was just gonna go watch this thing," and he's kind
Yeah.
of trying to say no, and they're like, "Please," and he's like, "Well, I can pop in and out." So like, they don't just jump straight to the end. They're sort of like, this is a process, and the dad didn't want to do it, but then he did. So like, points for him because it ended up the right way.
Yep. But also sometimes I just want to watch Liverpool. I just want to put soccer on in the background and like, can't you guys read a book?
Yeah. And that's okay.
It is, yes. Next question. Replacement curse word. What's your go-to?
Okay, so this is a funny one because I actually have a couple of songs coming out about this.
Yes, that's awesome.
Okay, so let me just talk about these really quick.
Yeah, yeah.
I've got one that's completely in the can called Poo Poo Cow. And so it's about like this being a go-to replacement curse word, like,
Yeah.
and it just sounds like a drum beat. So the drum beat is
Poo poo cow. Poo
right.
poo cow.
Exactly. So that's like the hook of the song. And I like those for go-to ones that sound funny.
Yeah, yeah.
Really help because if you can turn your pain into laughter, that really helps.
Yep.
So the story goes that my wife's sister, when she would really get mad when she was little, she would say poopy butt pee, like just all of the words that she could think of that she knew at that time that
All
were
the
like
bathroom words. Yeah.
right. And so poopy butt pee is a decent one,
Yeah.
to just sort
That's
of
solid.
like say silly things. And it's because I know that the most common answer is just like, just let it fly.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's okay. But I do notice that kids, what I tell my kids is swear words are fine. But once you direct them at somebody,
Mm-hmm.
that's really significant.
Yeah, it
Right.
is.
And that's the first thing they do is they try it on you. And you're like, oh man, like, no, that
Yeah,
didn't
you're
work out the
an
way I wanted.
idiot.
Right. And then
So can I
had
say that they're being an effing idiot or that you are an effing idiot? And you're just like, both aren't really my favorite.
yeah, could we go back to where I didn't say that thing? Because that was another thing I didn't want to deal with today. Like, let me deal with
Exactly.
it on my time. Like, like, and also I don't anticipate going into my kid's room and being like, all right, let's talk about this word today. Like,
Pretty much.
that doesn't happen either. But I had this conversation with my son and my wife where I was like, I've got this song idea and it goes, congratulations, you're super freaking awesome. And it's like a positive spin
Yeah,
on
yeah.
that. But like, can I say freaking?
I
And
don't
they're like,
know.
I don't know. You
I
might
don't
like
know.
alienate some of your audience. And
Yeah.
so where it sits right now is that it's flippin', which is a replacement for frickin', which
Yeah.
is a replacement for the
Yeah.
actual word. And I
Yeah.
think I'm getting far enough away from it that it might work.
Yeah.
But this is a current ongoing conversation in my
Yeah. Well, because like, I mean, you could use fluffin also, but because you're trying to honor the energy and the
Mhm.
passion of what the F word can mean in that moment.
Right. Yeah.
But also like, yeah, I think freaking like is so blatantly like, just say the word.
Right.
You
Yeah.
can't say.
But it's talking about how awesome our kid lead character in our show
Yeah.
is. So it's kind of spinning it that way. But also just like some of those words are so well designed with their and their and you're just like,
Dude.
oh
They're
yeah.
satisfying words. They can
Yeah,
be
totally.
some satisfying words.
100%.
Next question. Favorite kids toy or activity that you do with your kids?
There's this board game I really like called Here to Slay. Takes like 30
Mm-hmm.
minutes and it feels like a video game to a certain
Okay.
degree.
Yeah.
And I love playing video games with my son. I
Yes.
remember one of the first ones we really got into was the Cat Quest series.
Okay.
These silly multiplayer RPGs.
Yeah.
That was one we did together, but obviously we started with Mario and Zelda,
Yeah.
all that stuff. Let's see. So yeah, any video game that we can find that that's just so fun because I grew up on
Yeah.
a lot of that stuff
Yeah.
and really enjoy that together. Not as much for me and my daughter, but I will say
Yeah.
for all of us, surprise, surprise, music is a really big deal, as I've talked
Cool.
about.
Yeah.
Listening to music together, my kids sing on a lot of my stuff. My son is becoming a better rapper and musician all the time. He has perfect pitch.
Cool.
So I get Alyssa involved like in bits and pieces where I'll record her voice and then I'll like pitch shift it and I'll
Yeah.
put it
Yeah.
in.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's starting to get more comfortable and better putting the headphones on and singing to a microphone. She did that for the first time the other day. It turned out
That's
amazing.
awesome. That's really sweet.
Yeah. But it's mostly like, more call and response stuff than like singing on beat and in pitch and that sort of thing. And I still am getting better and better at knowing how to incorporate her.
Yeah.
My son is just starting to just come into his own as a musician, and I'm starting
cool.
to just use him a lot more, especially when I dream up a collaboration that doesn't work and I'm like, "Hey Tyler, can you do this part?"
Yeah.
He's like, "Yeah." So all the
cool.
music stuff, creating it, listening to it, bonding
Yeah.
over it. My son is super into video game soundtracks.
Okay.
So he's a
Yeah.
huge like Toby Fox fan. We love Darren Korb. He wrote the Hades soundtrack,
Okay.
and he listens to 90% video game music.
That's so cool.
It's great.
That's awesome. Still Final Fantasy VII is my favorite score, like of all
Yes.
time, but
Yes.
also very impressionable game to me whenever I was a kid. So
And yeah, that definitely plays a part. My favorite game of all time is Skyrim. Beautiful soundtrack.
okay. Yep.
Yep. But just it's an underappreciated medium with
Mhm.
certain people.
Yep.
For the most part, I like my songs with lyrics and vocals, but for instrumental music, I really like the video game stuff.
That's awesome. And then last question, least favorite kids show.
Cocomelon and Bebe Finn are like, I mentioned when I think about my target audience when I'm writing kids music.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's and I just want to give an alternative to that because I really dislike that.
That's how like Matt Pryor was for Get Up Kids. He was like, I'm going to do kids music because this kids music sucks and I can make better stuff than this.
Yeah. So yeah, Cocomelon, Bebe Finn, I think that's all I'll throw under the bus
Cool.
right now.
That's awesome.
If you're an indie creator and you're making stuff, good job.
Yeah,
if
right,
you're
yeah.
a huge corporation, no thank you.
Yeah, right. Okay. Last thing is moment for self-promotion. Like where do we find your music? All that stuff.
Riffingriffin.com. At the top, there's the links to all the socials because of what I've been talking about with what's been going on in Minneapolis.
Yes.
It's a little bit of a ghost town at the time being,
Mm-hmm.
but that'll pick up, especially in the summer when we've got like 30 shows lined up this summer.
Cool. Yeah.
So I'll be posting just because it's like I took a picture from what I did today. Like that comes
Yeah.
naturally. So, but if you want to go straight there, Instagram is Riffin Griffin Music. That's Facebook too, but I'm not great about posting there.
Yep.
I'm on TikTok, but eventually one of these might be the go-to thing. But so far
Yeah.
it's like, I don't know what I'm doing. It doesn't feel great to be on
Just
there.
find me. I don't know. I'm
Right.
here.
But I mean, I've got lots of content on there, just not recent.
Cool. Hey, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for trusting me with your story, and thank you for letting me learn about your life. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Devin. Lovely to meet you.
Perfect. Nice to meet you as well. See you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for listening to the episode. Make sure to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube at the Imperfect Dads Podcast. And make sure to give us 5 stars wherever you listen to us. Music, editing, and production is all done by me. Make sure to tune in on Mondays and most Thursdays for new episodes. This podcast is part of the Never Efface Network. Make sure to go to nevereffacenetwork.com to learn more about them.